welcome to IFAB Online.
Welcome to IFAB Online.
Welcome to IFAB Online.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to IFAB Online. I'm Sean O'Hara, your moderator today for a session on fundraising in Asia for North America. I have two esteemed colleagues with me today, Jessie Brooks, who's the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Spelman College. Jessie brings nearly 20 years of higher ed fundraising to us today. He comes from not only Spelman College, but he has a background at Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California at San Diego, and as the head of corporate and foundation relations at Thunderbird School of Global Management. Welcome, Jessie.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. I'm happy to be here today. As Sean mentioned, I am the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Spelman College. I've been in that position for the past 4 years, and it's definitely been an exciting 4 years for me. I want to give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about my background as well. So prior to when I first started out in my fundraising career, I started out working for the Thunderbird, the International Graduate School in Phoenix, Arizona. And I started there working in corporate relations, and that's when I started my career. After my stint at Thunderbird, I moved to Seattle at the University of Washington, where I became a frontline fundraiser, but also worked for corporate relations for the College of Engineering at the University of Washington. After that, I left Seattle, moved to San Diego, where I spent the next 15 years. And I spent 7 years at the University of California, San Diego, doing frontline fundraising for biological sciences, but also Scripps Institution of Oceanography, one of the world's leading research institutions for oceanography. Then I went to the crosstown rival, San Diego State, and I spent 8 years there, where I worked doing frontline fundraising for health and human services, sciences, and eventually I was promoted to be the Associate Vice President for Development, working on the successful San Diego State campaign. And now I'm at Spelman College. And I wanted to take this time to just give you a brief overview of Spelman College, because many of you may not know about Spelman College. So I'd like to do that at this point in time. So I'm gonna transition to the slides. I want to tell you a little bit about Spelman College. It was founded in 1881 by two Baptist missionaries in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta certainly is a town that is storied in a lot of civil rights activism and a lot of history for the US. It's all female, and we educate African-American women. It is a liberal arts, a very highly respected liberal arts college. We have 2,200 young women who are part of our student body, freshmen through seniors. We do not have graduate programs at Spelman. It's strictly undergraduate. And we're a member of the Atlanta University Consortium. And so what that means is we're in a consortium with 3 other institutions in Atlanta that are co-located. Morehouse College, which is all males. Clark Atlanta, which is co-ed, actually females and males. And then the Morehouse School of Medicine, which is a fine academic institution. I want to talk about some pride points at Spelman College, because we're one of the highest, we have a very strong program in liberal arts, and we have over 27 majors in liberal arts, and we are the #1 historically Black college and university in the country. There are approximately 100 historically Black colleges and universities. We're #1. We've been #1 for 14 consecutive years. We're number 54 for best liberal arts colleges as ranked by US News and World Report. We're number 32 for study abroad in terms of when you look at the number of students that we send abroad. We're number 32 in study abroad, and that's been a strong focus for the institution. We're #1. We're the #1 producer of Black women who can complete PhDs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the country. And I just want to conclude by saying also 48% of our students are Pell eligible, which means that many of our students have significant need. And that's a high number for Pell eligible students, but we're able to accept these students and make sure that they get a high quality education. We have a 6-year graduation rate at 75%. And in terms of, if you're looking at the African American community, that's 30 points higher than at any other institution in the country for African American graduates. And our students hail from 40 states and countries. So I just wanted to give you just a quick overview of Spelman College to let you know our excellence.
Super, thank you, Jesse. Our other esteemed colleague is Liza Boffen. Liza leads the Nanyang Technical University's development team as the Chief Development Officer and Executive Director of the Development Office. Liza joined NTU in September 2018 from the Indian Institute of Technology at Bombay, IITB, where she was the first Chief Development Officer and CEO of the IITB Development and Relations Foundation in Mumbai. She was also the Vice President of Advancement at Franklin University in Switzerland, Senior Director of International Advancement at George Washington University, and Director of Development at Sing Health, and Dean of Undergraduate Programs at the Center for American Education in Singapore. Liza has a proud resume, having brought the Certified Fundraising Executive Credential in Singapore as the first to be trained in Singapore. And she's an AFP master teacher and taught at the annual giving module for the AFP Essentials Certificate Program. It's nice to have you with us, Liza. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Sean. I am so pleased to be here with everybody. So like Jesse, I'd love to share some more about how I came to be here in Singapore. This is actually my second time around in Singapore. I first came in 2007. But like most of the folks who I think are joining me, I started at my alma mater. So I'm getting ready to head into my 23rd year in university advancement. But I started at my alma mater, Trinity Washington University, a all women's university in Washington, D.C., home of Nancy Pelosi. Quite proud tradition. And I was there for 5 years, starting in alumni relations, became director of the annual funds, and finished out my tenure there as director of a capital campaign, which was a $15 million campaign, which at the time was huge. I think, working on a campaign that early in my career really gave me some perspective, because I find myself now planning a $1 billion campaign. So working through a $15 million campaign, we came in at 18.5 for the first building on our campus, the largest sports complex for women and girls on the East Coast of the US. So quite an exciting opportunity. And then I joined the campaign team at Purdue University. So Purdue was in its first $1 billion campaign. I came in reporting to 2 different deans. So using the 5 years experience that I had at Trinity, starting alumni chapters, I started 4 international chapters. I reported to the dean for international programs and the dean for the graduate college. And what was exciting about that position is having 2 heads, having 2 different direct reports can be challenging. And it's something that I think when people read the job description, they had a lot of questions and concerns, but it actually gave me a lot of experience in reporting to 2 very different academics and 2 very different teams. So from Purdue, I was really lucky. We finished the campaign, the $1 billion campaign. We came in over goal, which I think anytime you work on a campaign, you always you always hope to overshoot. And I was essentially headhunted to join the National University of Singapore. So I was one of the first 10 members to join the team at NUS. So I came to Singapore first in 2007 and started the annual giving team. It was a great opportunity to really grow a young team, and taking that experience of having started in alumni relations, working in annual giving, and then running a small team at Purdue in campaign, coming out to a new country where philanthropy, Singaporeans and Asians in general are very philanthropic. I think trying to find out what's the story, what's the catch that's going to make them, what's the story that's going to resonate most with them. So I was at NUS for 3 years. I moved on to to be dean for a university program here in Singapore, and then moved into healthcare, which was a contract position, which I think so many of us who work in university administration, have kind of a mindset that, hey, it can't be that difficult to transition this experience that I have in in university administration, because we've all worked with professors. Medical doctors can't be that much different. And I know there are some folks who are shaking their heads. Yeah, they're real different. And it's at that point that I decided to leave Singapore and move back to the States and took a position with George Washington University, directing their alumni and development program internationally. So traveling about 240 days a year, crazy travel schedule, and working with the new president. So really getting some great exposure internationally. And that's when I decided to take my career international again and joined a really small college in Lugano, Switzerland. Great experience. I think those of us who come from large teams, come from large universities, again, sometimes have that trepidation of making that shift to running your own team at a small place. It was a great experience for me, and it set me up to be successful when I joined IIT Bombay. So, coming to India after having traveled to India many times, I think, again, we all, have that. I've been to Honolulu on vacation. I'll bet that'd be a great place to live. I had that same feeling about Mumbai. I've been there. I love that city. I could totally live there. It's a different experience when you pick up and move to a new country, a new culture, and a new academic framework. So universities in India are very British, very conservative, and very by the book. So setting up a new foundation was actually much more difficult than I anticipated, or even that the academic leadership anticipated. So after 2 years at IIT Bombay, I was really lucky to be headhunted and join President Subir Suresh, who is our new president, well, not new anymore, but our new president at NTU. And I've been here sliding into my 3rd year, which I just can't believe. So let me share a little bit about NTU. It is a national university in Singapore. So very similar to what we would consider a land-grant university in the US. So we were established in 1991. We are a research-intensive public university. We are funded by a vast, most of our expenses are funded by the Singapore government and the Singapore people, the taxpayers of Singapore. We have 33,000 undergrads and postgrads in 6 different colleges and 11 schools. We have 250,000 living alumni. So while we are young, we count on the tradition of 2 previous institutions that came before NTU, and those are counted in our alumni numbers. So we graduate a very significant cohort of students every year, and we will hit 265,000 living alumni this year. We're ranked 13th globally in the QS World Rankings. Again, this is something that we were thrilled again to beat our ranking from last year. We continue to be the world's best young university. This is the 7th consecutive year that we've held that title with QS. And we have a lot of international students on campus. So we have over 100 nationalities on campus and 300 global academic partners. So we're lucky to have a very diverse student body, but also a very diverse academic body. So our faculty and staff also come from over 100 different countries of nationality. So just to give you a flavor of why NTU is NTU, we are a technological university. We are ranked 8th in the world for EEE, electronic and electronic engineering. This is the largest engineering school in the world. So I'm really lucky to work with some amazing faculty members who really love teaching undergrads, but really get into the research that's around making world issues, particularly those surrounding the 4th Industrial Revolution, making solutions and turning those into real world opportunities. Again, that leads into the second point on this slide is we top Asian universities in normalized research citation impact. Again, this is a crucial indication of the depth of research that's happening at NTU. And just so you don't think we're just nerds, we're also dorks. So our business school, MBA, rated top in Singapore since 2004 by The Economist. So we have a really diverse campus that is just a fantastic hotbed for innovation and entrepreneurship.
Thanks a lot, Liza. Well, as you can see, we bring a wealth of fundraising experience across a wide diversity of institutions around the world, having Jesse and Liza with us today. So let's have a quick conversation about fundraising in Asia for North America. So Jesse, tell us first a little bit about your region being the United States and how a foreigner should consider addressing the opportunities and challenges of raising money in North America.
I think how a foreigner should approach raising money, certainly in the U.S. And keep in mind that I've been in various regions. I've worked on the West Coast, and now I'm actually working in the Southeast, which is very different, than the West Coast. I would say that what's important is it's important to get to know the region and the area, the culture, what resonates, what motivates people, what's actually happening in that community, what are some of the key industries in that region, but also what are the key ideas and what are the key community ideas that are happening in that community. It's really important to understand that. It's important to understand the demographics of the region as well, who's in the region, what motivates them, what are their specific areas of giving, what are the civic areas of giving, what are the cultural areas of giving. That's really important in terms of what you need to know in terms of engaging in the US. Also too as well is it's really important to get involved in organizations too as well. Be involved, be engaged, and pick organizations, really that may align specifically with your values, but also with the typical area that you're fundraising for too as well. What I found is that if you do a great job of understanding the community, understanding what is important to the community, and if you're able to understand what's important to the community, you understand what's important to the individuals, you can make that connection. Keep in mind that everything you do is all about relationships and all about making those effective relationships. So clearly, in working in California, it's a little bit different than working in the Southeast. In the Southeast, it's relationship based. People want to get to know you. They want to get to know who you are. They want to be able to trust you. You're their best friend. It's really a relationship that you build with that person. You build that person individually. And this is whether you're dealing with an individual or you're dealing with someone who works as a corporation. They want to know who you are and they want to know what makes you tick, but they want to know how you can impact them and how you think about them and how you think about what they're doing in their lives. In California, it's not to say it's not the same thing, but it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily getting to know the individual. It's really getting to know what resonates with that person and making sure that you can connect them with what resonates with them. So you have to make sure that when you're in a specific region, when you're working with individuals, you need to know what motivates that particular individual in that region and really what the culture of that region is too as well, because that will determine your success, as a fundraiser. Fundraising in Atlanta is very different than fundraising in California, but you can be successful in both. But the key component is understanding what motivates the individual and understanding how you can help them make an impact. It really is how you can help them make a difference.
Super, Jesse. Thank you. Liza, can you share with us an overview on what it's like to raise money in Asia in general and how a person fundraising in Asia for North America could be the most successful?
Sure. I mean, my head was nodding when Jesse was speaking. Obviously, philanthropy and the way that we raise money, it's not all that different in Asia. So, we are very cognizant of the fact that this is about relationships. So, Jesse said it's all about relationships. I think that's a really important point. It doesn't matter if you're in Baltimore or Bombay, right, or Beijing. This really is about building relationships across culture. So again, the point that Jesse made about culture and what resonates with people, I think is really essential, because as a a Caucasian working in Asia, I think you bring different experiences and opportunities that people are keen to learn about and to understand. So a lot of folks think that fundraising in Asia is very transactional, and I'll tell you that's not something to be afraid of. So many of our relationships start as a transactional thing, right? I want to get a bursary and name it after my father-in-law because it looks good and he's turning 99 and it's going to be a big thing. That's fantastic, but the way that we see it is that's a starting point, right? That's the initial conversation for a long-term relationship with the university, and we have a lot of gifts that come in from friends. So the bulk of our funds come from corporate partners and friends. So while we have a really great alumni giving program, the bulk of our major gifts come from friends and corporate partners. So really taking that transactional relationship and kind of turning that idea on its head, I think is really important when you're dealing in Asia. So how can a North American fundraiser be successful in Asia? It takes boots on the ground. So you have to be visible. So you can't do the once a year fly-in. It's just not going to happen. So really making sure that you take advantage of tools that we have now, like Zoom, to be able to have those relationships with your donors who live internationally is really, really important. It's something that we have really, I'll be honest, struggled with at NTU, is trying to figure out how we can use technology, even to reach, Singapore is a small island. How do we reach folks on the other coast, right? Which is a 45-minute to an hour drive. And we've really narrowed that down to have very targeted major donor tea receptions with our deans. And so, we have tea sets delivered to our donors, and they have an hour-long conversation, one-on-one with the dean. So these are opportunities that they may not have had in years. So, while COVID has brought all kinds of other issues, we've been able to turn that transactional relationship on its head and really try to create opportunities that broaden the relationship. And it's something that I think fundraisers from North America, fundraising in Asia, need to be very aware of.
And Liza, do you will fundraisers trying to raise money in Asia run into any tax barriers or barriers trying to get the money out of their country into North America? How is that going?
Yeah, so this is the biggest question that we get asked, actually. So Singapore has a very generous tax situation for donations. So our donations that we receive in Singapore to the university, because we are an IPC, Institution of Public Character, we get a one-to-one match from the government for all donations. For donations that come in for undergraduate programs, we get a 1.5 times matching gift from the government. What that turns into for the individual, for the tax resident, is a 250% tax deduction straight off of your income. So when you make a gift to NTU, so you make $1,000 gift, it's actually worth $2,500 off of your taxable income. It's a lot. So when North American universities come to Singapore, it's a really hard conversation for them to have, because if you're not a tax resident in the United States, your money is flowing out of Singapore to a university in the US, you're not going to see any tax deduction, tax relief for that gift. So for those donors for whom tax relief is an issue and a reason for their giving, it's going to be harder and harder to make that, particularly a $50,000 or $100,000 ask in Singapore. Now, if you're talking to somebody about $1 million or plus gift, I don't think the tax considerations are the reason that they're giving. But money outflow from Singapore is not regulated, unlike China, India, Thailand. Many, many other countries in Asia have a very structured and stringent regulation on money outflows. So in India, we have many donors who want to give to NTU. They actually have to receive approval from the Central Bank of India to send out philanthropic gifts. So again, this is designed for Indians to be able to give to philanthropic funds in India, so that it discourages Indians from giving outside of India. So it's a challenge, and you have to, again, the story has to resonate to them to be able to get the money, for them to be able to go to the central bank and say, hey, I really want to give this gift to XYZ University in the States, or NTU. So it's a challenge trying to pull money out. We've been relatively lucky in China. NTU has 6 offices in China, so we have a corporate partner. NTU has a corporate brand in China. So we're actually able to solicit philanthropic funds to support research and student projects in China. But again, the money doesn't flow to Singapore. We've been relatively modestly successful pulling money out of China, but it equates to about $500,000 a year, Singaporean. So we're not talking millions and millions that's coming out of China. We have been more successful in creating philanthropic opportunities within China.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you very much. So let's jump to the COVID question, since that's on everyone's minds. And both, Liza, both you and Jesse, your institutions have been massively successful during COVID. Talk to us about COVID and how it's impacted your local and cross border funding. Liza, you can go first if you'd like.
Holy smokes. COVID in Asia, obviously we were the first ones to really wake up to the idea that this was a pandemic. Having lived through SARS, having lived through other pandemics in Asia, this is an opportunity for us to essentially shine. The challenge is, a SARS virus like COVID kind of sideswiped a lot of the precautions and plans that had been in place for other similar situations. So Singapore went into lockdown in April. We don't call it a lockdown, it was called a circuit breaker, basically just to slow everything down. We started working from home during the circuit breaker in April. We are still only 30% back to the office. So it equates to about once a week we head back to the office, and no more than 30% of our staff can be back in the office at a time. So it's a lot of work to figure out how that actually functions. But like Sean said, we've been very, very prolific during this time at home. So it's given us an opportunity to connect with donors who we might only see once a year. And because they are now attuned to using Zoom or Teams or Skype, we've been able to connect with people multiple times over the last months when that just wasn't feasible when we were doing in-person meetings. So it's really changed the dynamic for a lot of our particularly our major gift officers. So at NTU, I'm lucky, we have a team of about 14 major gift officers who work on gifts of $100,000 and up. So we've been very successful in creating that relationship. So strengthening that relationship and telling the stories of why our students are even more in need now than they were before. Jesse shared the fact that 40% of his students are Pell Grant eligible. Almost 50% of our students at NTU receive some form of financial aid. So while our tuition is relatively, from US standards, relatively inexpensive, our students come from very, very different family situations. And so, being able to make sure that any student who is academically accepted into NTU is able to attend is a huge reason why we do what we do. And the bulk of the funds that we raise are for student support. So COVID kind of gave us a kind of a kick in the butt and gave us a new funding opportunity for some of our long-term partners. So we were very lucky to go into COVID with about $1 million in our student emergency fund. What we quickly realized is we needed more. So our students, as I mentioned, come from very, very different backgrounds. And, being able to afford a $4 bus fare across town from where your parents live is daunting for some students. That means that they're not able to eat that day. So some of them choose to eat. So those are the choices that we were seeing some of our students having to make. And it gave us those stories that we were able to tell our donors. And so we raised over $2 million for the Ntu Priorities Fund. So we actually launched the fund in April 2020 with a personal gift from our president and his wife, Prof. Subra Suresh, and his wife Mary. And that really was an impetus for so many in the community to kind of wake up to the fact that there was this gigantic need. And so we actually meshed it with a grant from the university. So we had two funds. One was the Ntu Priorities Fund, and the other was the Ntu Fund. And that was set up with money from the university to help students be able to afford things like a laptop or bus fare. So again, this was to help the neediest of the needy, and really those who didn't receive some of the financial assistance that the Singapore government was able to give out. So we were really excited as part of the Ntu Priorities Fund. You know, one of the things that Prof. Suresh really wanted to focus on was the fact that students who received financial assistance through the fund had an opportunity or had a idea in their mind that they would pay that money back. So as you know, understanding the culture of philanthropy on campus, you have been helped by a gift of philanthropy. When you're able, when you're in a position to be able to help another student, do so. So it's really allowing us to have that conversation with students while they're still students and while they're not alumni, to really get them to understand that this is, you know, something that we're doing as a university community. And you know, part of that was really reaching out and making sure that students knew that these funds were available. I think on a lot of our campuses, particularly those that are large, students don't always know that these opportunities are available. So we had pretty good coverage in the national newspapers. We had great coverage online and on TV. So this was really a good opportunity for NTU to shine because our students are our lifeblood. So again, within 6 months, within 5 months, we had already attracted 1,300 donors to the fund. And we actually just recently got a huge gift. So my slides are even outdated from earlier today. So we've reached over $2 million for the fund. And again, these are students who have financial need, who've already been screened by the university. And we've been able to reach over 400 with the Ntu Priorities Fund. The gifts, you know, the dollar figures range from $50 to buy rice to upwards of 3,500. So again, based on what the student's need is, we've been able to meet that need. Yeah, so I feel a little funny calling it a scheme, but that's a term in Asia that a lot of universities use. So obviously, because there's no international travel, Singapore is a very small island. Nobody was able to leave, so nobody was able to use vacation or holiday leave. So what we did as a university community was have a conversation about what we can do with that leave, because it does have value. So not just the mental health of our faculty and staff members, but an actual dollar amount. So what we decided to do is actually work together with 3 or 4 offices on campus to figure out how we could get our faculty and staff an opportunity to donate that leave to an NTU fund of their choice. So what we were able to come up with looking across those offices is we pegged it at 15 days of unutilized leave that they could donate. And then we chose about 48 different funds across the university. So people, you know, working in the library could donate to the library. So it was a great opportunity for them. So we just launched on October 1st. So we're 15 days in. Sorry, this was recorded on October 15th. We'll be going through the 31st of October. And then we'll do a second redemption round in 2021 because we know that there are going to be some issues in early next year with using leave as well. So to date, we've had 825 staff members donate leave. The total number of days donated is 10,000 days. 10,145 days have been donated. This is the most shocking thing to date. we've raised $5.7 million in leave that has been donated. So again, when you give staff and faculty an opportunity to give something that's personal, your leave days are personal. When you give them an opportunity to donate something to the fund of their choice, so we have gifts to every single fund that was available. So we had some running bets in the office, which were some of the funds that were going to be the biggest. And obviously the Ntu Priorities Fund, because that's been circulated for weeks now, was the biggest winner at around 1.8 million was given directly to the Ntu Priorities Fund. And our second biggest winner was Triple E. So Triple E came in at close to $1 million as well. So, we have fantastic faculty and staff who recognize where the projects and priorities are that need support. And they came through like gangbusters for us for this. So that's what we've been working on for the past few months. And I hope to be able to give another update in November.
Excellent, Liza, really good. Thank you very much. Jesse, I know COVID-19's had a big impact on some of your fundraising efforts, and you've been able to maximize that opportunity. Can you share with us some of your some of the things that you did that represent quite a pivot?
I can, and also I just want to mention to Liza, those are amazing efforts and really, really very important. So, continue the good work. I have to start by saying that Spelman College it's a private nonprofit institution, and so we really do. We're scrappy, and in terms of fundraising, I mean, we really do have to make sure that we uncover every single dollar out there in the community. Because we are private and our tuition is not inexpensive for our young women. And as I mentioned earlier, 48% of our young women are Pell eligible. I do want to start by saying that the key thing during this time is that as an institution, we all rallied together because we knew that COVID-19 was something that significantly affected the African American community. And so that was one thing that was prevalent in terms of everything that we did. Our president showed incredible leadership, Dr. Mary Smith Campbell, and also our board of trustees took a really active role in everything that we've done so far. So we pivoted in March of 2020. In March of 2020, our students did not come back from spring break. They went directly from spring break home. We did not have classes that semester. We do not have classes for the fall semester. So our students are not on campus. But what we did was we took that time to be very deliberate about how we wanted to proceed and how we wanted to make sure that we could provide as much support to our students, but also how we could make sure that Spelman remained stable and remained, certainly as financially strong as possible. So what we did is we looked at our budgets and we made sure that we did some budget tightening. That was the first thing that we did. Also, we know that we have a very challenged student body. We provided tuition discounts to every single student, 10%. We provided a 40% reduction on student fees, every student. Through philanthropy, from some generous supporters, we were able to provide each student with a $3,000 scholarship as well for every single student. That was something that we'd not done ever before. And it was something that we felt that we needed to do at this point in time to make sure that we made it through this period. We worked very closely with our faculty members to make sure that they were safe. We worked very, very closely with our staff to make sure everything was in place so that we could deliver an outstanding education. Even though it wouldn't be the same, it would be as outstanding as possible because Spelman is really based on the on-campus experience. The on-campus experiences makes Spelman what it is. And so we know that if we didn't create something very similar to that for our students, they would be shortchanged. We went to an entirely virtual environment in terms of all of our programming and all of our activities. So we pivoted very, very quickly. And also at this point in time, through advice of our consultants, we actually ramped up our fundraising activities. So our fundraising activities now are in overdrive. And how we did that is we looked at our annual giving, we looked at our individual giving, we looked at our planned giving, we looked at all our corporate and foundation giving, and we looked to see how we could maximize every single component of those areas. And so what we did is we embarked on this really comprehensive, focused campaign of engaging our existing donors, but also acquiring new donors to the institution. And it has worked. Uh, we had a record fundraising year last year. And the key to our success really has been making sure that we are crystal clear about what impact we're having and what we're doing. At the end of the day, our job is to educate African American women. And during this period in time, they're a group that are really seriously challenged at this point in time. When you look at our students, I mean, they may have home challenges, they may have so many different issues. And so we are able to really kind of make the case with the public across the country that it is absolutely essential and important that these young women have access to an education. And just because we're in a COVID pandemic situation, that should not negate the fact that they need to have a high quality education. And that message has resonated. We've done that through strategic marketing. We've done that through also utilizing virtual meetings effectively. What we've done now is we do virtual briefings with small groups of individuals. It was something like that Liza mentioned, but they're very targeted. They're very targeted in terms of who we bring to the meeting, and they're very targeted in terms of the specific initiative that we're talking about as well. And so those have been extremely successful, and we've actually deployed those very, very effectively, and they've been incredibly helpful to us. Another key element that we have at Spelman College is we have an outstanding alumni, need to get this, alumni because we're women, alumni base that they are deeply committed to the institution. And if you do have individuals who are loyal to our institution, now is the time to rally them, to excite them, to motivate them. They have been incredibly supportive because they know what we need to do. And we have 20,000 alumni. We're small. We have 20,000 alumni. We have a 33% alumni giving rate. But during this COVID pandemic time, they rallied to our defense in massive numbers. And they have been absolutely essential in our success. Also, during this time, we've really leveraged our board and also their friendships and their connections that are outside the institution. And so we've actually secured many, many, many new donors who have never given to Spelman before, who have no connection to Spelman, and are giving to our institution. So we really kind of created a message in terms of here is how you can be impactful and here is how you can help. We also knew that a lot of our students had need. And so I really want to transition to a slide about our Student Emergency Fund. One of the things that we created during this time that has been incredibly successful for us has been a Student Emergency Fund. And I want to mention this. This is our Student Emergency Fund number 1. We currently have a Student Emergency Fund number 2 that is currently in existence that we're raising money for as well. But I wanted to show this, to the group because it's something that we created because we have a number of students who have tremendous need. And so the money raised you see here, the 230,000, it represents a significant commitment from our alumni. Over 80% of the contributors to this fund were alumni. It includes significant, six-figure gifts to the fund as well from non-alumni. But what is important with this emergency fund is that we were able to help 293 students. And keep in mind that we only have 2,000 students at the Spelman campus. And so we had 409 requests, And so we broke it out in terms of unsupported requests that that did not meet the guidelines of why we created the emergency fund, but we're able to help 293 students with technology, if they needed technology, with travel, with rent, and with food expenses. And so we were extremely pleased with the impact that this particular fund had. We had no idea that we would raise 233,000. This went directly to the students. The new fund emergency fund number 2 that we have put in place, our goal is we got a $250,000 match, and our goal is to raise another $250,000, so to get to 500 for emergency fund number 2, and we're on our way to making that happen. But these type things were important in terms of showing the impact to our donors, to our alumni, and to individuals. And this also created a lot of activity and excitement for the institution. What I can say is that it isn't important at this point in time to really be bold in terms of what you want to do. I know that a lot of people think that it's COVID-19 and you may want to either pull back, or you may just want to continue doing what you're doing from a fundraising perspective. What we found is that we've been bold, and it's really paid off because our donors they're excited about the fact that they're helping, and their gifts are really making a difference at a time where they can really make a difference. And so they've even stepped up to the plate, and they've increased their donations. And during this time, you'll find that you'll find donors who didn't know about your institution, didn't know about your particular cause, and they are willing to step up to the plate and take a chance and really make a difference. But it's really all about making sure that your messaging is clear, that you show impact, and that you then, at the end of the day too, show results and show metrics. You have to be able to show results and show metrics too as well. And that's the approach that we've taken.
You know, I think it's interesting that both you, Jesse, and Liza talk about results a lot. And I think that people like to make gifts to organizations that are successful and that are on a success track. So your ability to show your results and tell your story the way you both have with really enormous fundraising success is impressive. But there are a lot of countries in the world right now that are not just dealing with the pandemic, but they're dealing with what I'm going to say another layer of crisis, whether it's, you know, hurricanes, or whether it's unrest, political unrest. In the US, we've had some political unrest around diversity, inclusion, DEI, and it has rippled around the world. In Hong Kong, they started with riots, and then they had the pandemic. Here we had the pandemic and entered riots. There's other countries that are dealing with massive climate issues. How are you managing and have the multiple layers of political opportunities and climatic opportunities impacted your fundraising? And you know, if you want to go first, Jesse, that'd be great. And then Liza will ask you to comment too.
Thanks, Sean. What you mentioned is relevant to what's happening in the US right now. Definitely, there are certain issues with racial equity and inequality, and that is something that really kind of comes front and center to an institution like a Spelman or Morehouse, certainly a historically Black college and university. What we found is there has been an outpouring that we had no idea would happen. We have gotten so much interest from so many individuals and from so many corporations in terms of what can we do, how can we work with you, and what kind of programs can we put in place with your institution so that we can move our company forward in a positive, proactive way that is diverse, and that is inclusive. So for us, it's really been this incredible time where you have all this interest in our institution, in how we can be a change maker, and how we can help their organization grow and move forward, and how our students can help their organizations grow and move forward as well. So the whole issue of racial equity has been front and center for us, and it's been probably a significant part of our fundraising and our fundraising success over the past few months, just because so many organizations are interested in working with us. Also, too, as well, if you look at two of our gifts that we received over the past few months, we received a $40 million gift for scholarship support, and it was a part of this whole racial
Nice.
equity issue as well. We received a $20 million gift, which was part of this whole racial equity, but making sure that that we had the funds to do what we needed to do to ensure that our young women would have an opportunity. We've gotten multiple gifts from corporations, seven-figure gifts from corporations in terms of what can we do to help your students graduate, but what can we do also to really kind of increase the number of African American women coming to our company, entering the ranks, because we know we have a problem. So what the uncertainty has done is it's raised the level of conversation where people are having the conversations and are actually taking substantive actions to make change. And we're there to help them make that change. And also that is helping us in philanthropy back to the institution. So for us, we're saying that it's an opportunity for both us and the organization to move forward in a proactive way. And we're saying that we're trying to create solutions that will help everyone across the board. So for us, the whole racial equity issue has been really front and center in our fundraising, and I think it'll be front and center in terms of moving forward in the future too as well. Just because there's been so much interest, and we have just been uh, shocked by just the amount of interest in terms of what people want to do and how they want change to occur.
So you're running them on parallel tracks,
Yes.
COVID and racial equality and inclusion. Excellent, excellent, interesting.
But just quickly, Sean, I think they're intertwined, and they're intertwined because, and I think because COVID impacts the African American community so much, and racial equity impacts the African American community so much. So in a sense, they're parallel tracks, but they're also intertwined, and the effects are intertwined too as well. So it's kind of a complex situation, but we're managing in terms of how we can do the messaging. Yes.
Interesting. Thanks, Jesse. Liza, how about you in Asia? Birthplace of some very big demonstrations around democracy and equality, and different, of course, in each country. But tell us about how geopolitical, and climatic issues are impacting you and your efforts.
Sure. I think like Jesse, we've been really lucky to engage people across, a wide variety of aspirational goals. So, corporate partners who come to us, wondering about, will my factory in Australia be here in 10 years because of climate change? And NTU is the home of the Earth Observatory of Singapore, which does climate research across Asia globally as well. Working with really fantastic researchers and faculty who have, families who are impacted across the globe, be it riots or peaceful demonstrations, from Hong Kong to Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia recently. So we've seen the impact of student activism, which has definitely had an impact on campus. I think our students are very vocal and engaged globally, particularly when it comes to things like fossil fuel investments at the corporate level, at the university level. So really, kind of calling us to task about how we are investing at the university level, our funds. So it's such a wide range of topics and stories that we're able to kind of delve into through our faculty and staff. I think unlike Jesse, we have kind of a very shifting focus to really look at how we can impact Singaporean students. So because we are a national university funded by Singaporean taxpayers, but we have students from 80, 100 different countries on campus. The Singaporean taxpayer wants to make sure that Singaporean students are well looked after. And so, the focus has to always be on our Singaporean identity while we live and work in this global environment. So, trying to figure out how we can have those discussions with students about student activism across Asia Pacific, I think is one that we are continually challenged with. And recently we had students come to us exactly with this fossil fuel investment. So these are topics and opportunities, quite honestly, for engagement with students because we want them to see us as proactive and as part of a team. So Sean, you mentioned this earlier, is everybody wants to be on the winning team, right? And so when we can engage with students and make sure that they understand that we're all part of the same team and we all want to be on the winning team, I think it really gives them a different perception of what the challenges and opportunities are that we can kind of craft together.
Interesting. Thank you, Liza. So if there was one thing, Liza, that you were going to tell fundraisers about fundraising in Asia for North America, what would that be?
Wow, one thing?
One thing, the one most important thing. 10 things is easy. One thing is really hard.
I think being culturally relevant. So you really understanding where you're walking into a conversation with a donor, and what their expectations are. So we talk at NTU about aspirational giving. That's huge for me. So whether or not I'm talking to a donor in New York or Nanting, right? I really want to talk to them about how we can have that, how they can help us with that aspirational goal. So I think, that's not something that's particularly different here in Asia, but where you meet the donor is important. So, and I don't mean physically, I mean really culturally. So, understanding some of those cultural clues are really important. And there are a lot of guides out there, and there are a lot of folks like Sean and I who can answer these questions for you if you're going into a conversation with, a big family foundation or an alum that you haven't really been in contact with. But really making sure that you meet them where they are. I think all of us have these preconceived ideas of somebody who's been working or living in Asia for a long time, and we really need to check some of those preconceived ideas at the door. And really meet people where they are and have those relationships founded on trust and being real. Our donors in Asia, they know when you're being phony. So I would really make sure that people be their true, authentic self, and come to Asia, understanding that people are people, but people expect you to be true and real and tell them the real story.
So Liza, do you feel if you were a new fundraiser, if you were assigned recently to raising money in Asia for your North American institution, do you, I can envision a scenario where a person with this new international responsibility would get a book and read some things online and kind of cover the stereotypes. And then when they get there, so you're saying don't fake it until you make it. You're saying, be honest, ask the prospects about their culture. Absolutely. And about, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that was one of the best experiences I had coming to Asia. I mean, I had traveled to Asia quite extensively, but living here was something different. So, understanding what food preferences your donor has, and they may take you to a place that you've never been before. You might eat food that you've never had before. ask them, what is this? You know, be excited and enthusiastic about their culture. I think it definitely gives you an opportunity to be authentic in the relationship, because if you're not, they can tell. And
That's
we want to be true to our own
Mhm.
selves and to our own, you know, ethical responsibilities as fundraisers, but really starting off the relationship as a true relationship. So there, you know, there are a lot of dating parallels, right? But we really want to make sure that we're authentic and that we're truthful. So if you've never had bakute before, don't pretend you have. Just eat it and say, my God, this is the best thing I've ever had in my whole life. And yeah, so that would be my advice is you can read all you want, but until you're actually here, until you're face to face over a lunch or a dinner or over a tea service, you're not going to know what that experience is like. And be enthusiastic. So don't shut yourself off from having those kind of opportunities with donors.
Interesting. Thank you. Jesse, if you were to give one piece of advice to a person who's not from North America to raise money in North America, what would it be? The one piece of advice.
One piece, not multiple, just one.
Just one.
Well, I actually think what Liza mentioned in terms of being authentic, I think that's incredibly important because people know when you're not being authentic and they're not going to give to someone that they feel that they can't trust and is not authentic. But there are two that I'd like to mention that I think are important, whether you're fundraising in the U.S. or I even think fundraising, in internationally. And I think it's definitely important to be consistent. You know, it's important to make sure that you are getting back with the individual and you're touching base with them periodically. That you just don't talk with them once and then they don't hear from you, but that consistent meaningful engagement, not to talk just because you feel it's been 3 months, I got to talk with this individual. It really is finding meaningful ways to keep that person engaged and being being authentic and actually being genuine, in that conversation. But I think consistency is very, very important. The other thing too, for me is I think listening is absolutely essential. Listening to who they are, listening to what's happening with their family, listening to what's on their mind, what their concerns are, about the economy, and just being a good listener and being able to have that conversation and just listen to what they have to say. So from my perspective, in addition to being authentic, I do think it's important to be consistent and make sure that you follow through on what you're going to do and what they ask you to do, but then and also showing them that you're showing them the outcomes too as well, and then coupling that with great listening. And I think that you'll be successful. Certainly in North America, whether you're doing fundraising in Arizona or California or Atlanta, you'll be successful.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we've had an important conversation today, and I know that I've learned a few things, but all good news stories and panel stories end with, what is your last word? So I'm going to give you each an opportunity to have one last word to our conference participants. And I know they look forward to meeting you in the question and answer session that we'll be having later. So Jesse, what's your one last word?
My one last word would be to be bold. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Be bold and go for it. That's more than one word, but be bold. That's what I would
Be
say.
bold is brilliant. Thanks so much, Jesse. Liza, what is your one last word?
So this was some advice that I actually got from a colleague about 10 years ago. And, Jesse and I have both been in this business for 2 decades and probably will be in this business for another 2 decades. And I've had the opportunity to travel many countries. And I would just tell you, make sure that your family understands what you do. My daughter to this day just says that I plan parties and I ask people for money. Pretty cool. Make sure your family knows what you do and the impact it has on your community. And then make sure that you're able to take that next job. So make sure that you're financially able to leave California for Atlanta. So make sure that you're able to leave DC for Mumbai. So make sure that you're able to structure your life so that you're able to take advantage of that next opportunity, because you never know where in the world it's going to be. So make sure that you structure your career so that you're able to take that next leap. So be bold, but make sure you're prepared.
Be bold and ready.
Be bold and ready.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We truly appreciate it. I'm Shawn O'Hara, consultant with O'Hara Management Consultants and professor at Cal Lutheran University. We appreciate you taking the time to join IFAB Online and Fundraising in Asia for North America. Have a good day and take care.